Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next installment of 2020 technical webinars. Today, we are going to be covering some modeling members, material, and connections in SDS2 version 2020. I am Ryan Vanek. I have been working at SDS2 for 19 years now, working in the support department, currently working in research and development. Today we're going to continue on, like I said, some of the things that we're going to cover today. Our member type categories. It's kind of a filter for our member add prompt as we go along in SDS2 and we add more new members like concrete. We need to have some way to kind of filter those out or see them a little bit better, a little bit more clearer. Stair member line, kind of looked at it as like a stair outline in my modeling and in my drawing editor. Secondary girts, in version 2018, or I'm sorry, 2018, we added girts with a little bit more intelligence as far as connecting up to columns and other members. Now we've added in 2020 vertical girts. Connections, just a couple of connections that we'll look at today. Welded clips, through gusset plates, bracing to bracing connections. Also material plate washers, combining those so we have one strip or one plate instead of having individual plate washers. And then we're going to finish up today with miscellaneous members. There's a lot of new things with miscellaneous members. I couldn't pick out one thing that I really like on there, so I just have that, and we'll cover everything when we get to our miscellaneous members. But the first thing we're going to look at is member type categories. So I'm going to go ahead and open up SDS2, and we'll just bring up the modeling here in an ISO view. So I said they're during the member add prompt. So if I go to my keyboard and I hit my right key, F2 key, I have my member add prompt. Now you'll see that this list has gotten much bigger in 2020 and continues to grow. But over on the right-hand side, we have some different filters, some different categories. The first one's structural steel, miscellaneous steel, concrete rebar, other, and then BV detailing. If I go in there and I let's say I don't want to see the concrete items, I can unclick the concrete items. Maybe I just want to see structural steel. I can unclick all of the other ones and just see my structural steel. So my beams, columns, vertical brace, horizontal brace, joist, embed, and embed plate. Now, I will tell you that it does remember this. So if I exit out of SDS2 and I come back into this project, it will have remembered that. So if you're not seeing something that you want to see, remember to look over at those categories and make sure that it is clicked on. I want to see my miscellaneous steel because I'm going to add in some miscellaneous steel later on. So we'll leave that on right there. Now, that was hitting F2 on my default keyboard. It's also when I go to my model and I go to member, add, and then I go prompt for member type, that same list comes up. It is remembered from when I closed it out a second ago. So if you're not seeing something, remember to look over at that member categories. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Kind of want to start out with that one because it was such an easy one. The next one we're going to look at is stair member lines. I said this is kind of an outline of the member. So we're going to come down here to a stair that I already have in the model. And just so we can see it easier, I'm going to hide all unselected members just so we see the stair. Now, if I go to my display options, when I look at my display options, there is an option now for stair outline, kind of like we had joist outline a few versions back. We added the joist material and we added that joist outline so we could see that. Now we have that for stair outline. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Right now it's in solid, so it looks just like we would expect it to, but if we go to stick, we will see some new lines in there. We see our member line that we've always seen, but now we see lines for our stringers, our returns, and also our treads, and then a dotted line that kind of is our nosing there, so it shows us what direction the stair are going. So if we look at this from a plan view, we know which way our stair is going instead of just kind of trying to guess what we're doing there. If I go to an elevation view, you will see that my stair line is on the actual nosing line, and my stringers are where they actually are up from that nosing line. Like I said, I can turn this off. Maybe I just want to see that stick. I can go into my display options, turn off stair outline, say okay, and now I see that stick that traditionally I've seen in SDS2. Let's go ahead and turn that back on. Okay, so we also have this for our drawing editor. So when I go to an erection view and I detail an erection view, I can see that same outline that I see here in the model. So let's just go ahead and generate an erection view. I know that this is on the mezzanine level, so I'm going to go ahead and redetail my mezzanine level, and we're going to go look at settings. Now in my settings under appearance, I do have the option for show stair outline. By default, that is turned on. If you don't want to see that, you can turn that off as well. I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. And also this is on grid line E. I'm going to go back to my settings, and that show stair outline is on there as well. Now I have detailed this previously, so I'm just going to go into drawing editor and take a look at see what comes out there. Bring my drawing editor screen over here, and here we see that stair outline with the stringers, the main member line, and also the treads. If I double click on that, and maybe I don't want to see that main member line, I can turn that off. But I also have the option for show stair outline here. So if I do use the stair outline when I detail this erection view, I don't want to see it maybe on one stair, but I want to see it on the other. I do have control over that on the individual stair themselves. And then if we go and look at our grid line E, we can see we have that stair outline that's showing our returns and our stringers there, and then also our regular stair member line. Now I'm going to go back to the model here really quick, and I will tell you that when I go and say want to create something off of this, these are not pickable points to a certain extent. If I go to my exact point, I can grab the end of the stringers, I can grab the end of the member line, but I do not have the option to grab where the treads are. So, but I can grab the ends of the stringers, the ends of the returns, and the ends of the member lines. So that's kind of in a nutshell the stair outlines. Remember, you can turn them off in display options if you don't want to see them, but gives you a little bit more visual representation when you are at stick. And then also when you go to the drawing editor, you get a little bit more of a visual representation of what that stair actually is. The next thing I want to cover is secondary girts. Let's go ahead and show our whole model here again. And I have kind of a lull here of girts, and I'm going to go ahead and surface on the front of this girt. Now these girts were added with the tool that we have for 2018 for adding girts with the connections. Now we have the option, if I go into my member add prompt here, I have secondary girts. So these were added with the girt tool. Now I have secondary girts. What this allows me to do is pick points on here. Now you will see that I do get a nice little preview showing me what's going to come in. And we're going to go ahead and add that secondary girt. Similar type options with the other girts. I have my different connection types. Now I don't have to just go in between girts. I can go to the floor and still get a clip angle there. I can still get my connection, or I can go out in the middle of space. However I want to add this, I'm just going in between two different girts. Maybe I have a door jamb or something like that I want to create. I can create that with the secondary girts. We're going to go with angle connections. I do have angle or plane. And then I have some different options with my end preparations. I'm going to have it cope it out around the girts themselves, and my holes and bolts, we'll just go ahead and go with the defaults there. And we're going to go ahead and add another one from there to there. We'll go ahead and say okay. Like any other member, I can edit this one. Maybe I want that toe direction to go the other way. We can go ahead and toe in instead of out, say okay. And there we get our girt. Now I'm going to go ahead and re-add this one in. I want to try something here. Yep, there we go. There we go. Okay. So now I do have a connection in between the girts here. If I look here up top, they're connecting, coped around. If I go to the bottom, there I have that no cope. Now I can also go from secondary girt to secondary girt with a regular girt. So if I come in here and add another girt, so maybe I have a header or something like that above the doorway that I want to add that girt. I can come in here, select these 2 points. There I have my different information. We'll go with an angle connection type. We'll go ahead and say okay. And there I've added that girt in between the 2 girts. So kind of a way that I can do some different things with my girts, adding that in. Like I said, door jams might be something that's used for, but pretty useful tool that was added in 2020. And that's my secondary girts. A couple connections that I wanted to go over today. Welded clips. So in SDS2 2020, we now have the option for welded clips. Let's go ahead and go back to our ISO view. I believe I have some clip angles up here. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this connection right here. That's my left end. We'll go ahead and take a look at my left end. Right now we have it set to auto standard. We're just going to change it to clip angle just so we can see. We'll go and look at setup here in a second, but attachment to supported, welded, and attachment to supporting, we're going to go welded as well. We'll go ahead and say okay, and there I have my welded clips. If I go to my standard fabricator connections and my clip angle configurations, I do have options for all welded attached to supporting member and supported member. If I go in there, I have some options for what clips it's going to use, my alternative angle sizes, got my regular options there, but I can also set this up through my auto standard connections. If I go to from beam to columns and we go down to wide flange beam to wide flange column, and we'll just go flange perpendicular. We do have the option here as well. I can set that to welded as well. And I will get my design calcs just like any other connection. If I edit this connection, I'll see that I have my design calcs for that as well. Another option, moving over to vertical braces. With vertical braces, we've added some options for through shear plates. I'm going to go down to grid line 3. Let's do this without opening our menu. We'll click on grid line 3. Now I have that girt wall in the way, so I'm going to hide some other members here. We'll just grab these vertical braces and the columns and beams associated with them so we can take a look here. So right now, obviously I have a wide flange column that it's connecting to. I don't want a through gusset plate. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a HSS column. Let's go ahead and go with a 10 by 10 by 3/8. So here we have a HSS column. Let's look at the actual vertical brace because that's where we're going to set that we want it to be a through gusset plate. So if I go down to my connection specifications, inside of here, we have the option for gusset to supporting member. Right now it's set to automatic. I have through gusset there. Now with that through gusset, it will create that gusset plate going through the tube steel column. We'll go ahead and say done. And if we look at the backside of this column, we have that gusset plate going through the column. It does use the notching for my through gusset, my through plates for my columns and setup. And it is the through gusset is in the design calculations as well. So now I'm going to go to the other side where I have a shared gusset connection. So I have gussets coming in on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this column. And on this column, we'll change this to an HSS 8 by 3/8. We'll go ahead and say OK. Doesn't like the way I typed it. Oh, we got too many S's in there. We'll go ahead and say enter. Now I haven't modified these yet, so I'm going to have to go in and modify them as well to finish this processing. So I'll start with the angle that we saw before. And I'm going to change the right end to have a through gusset. So that is gusset to supporting member. We're going to say through gusset. We'll go ahead and say OK. Let that process. Now you will see that it doesn't have a through gusset plate. It recognizes that that other gusset plate is on the other side. So it's not going to give me that through gusset plate. If I would delete this wide flange vertical brace, it would get rid of it. But let's go ahead and change both of them through gusset plate. Now I did this in kind of a situation where there's a big plate on one side and a small plate on the other side, just to show you if the plates match up, it makes it a little bit easy, more of a realistic, I guess. But I wanted to show you that it does still work even in this situation when I have the larger gusset on one side and the smaller gusset on the other side, it will still give me that through gusset plate. So there we have our through gusset plate going through the column for both our angle vertical brace and our wide flange vertical brace. Now, another area of connection would be bracing to bracing. So in this situation, I have my vertical braces. Let's go ahead and look. We can add braces that connect to other vertical braces. So let's go back to our grid line 3, just so we're in the center there. And I'm going to go ahead and add in some more vertical braces. So let's go back up here, vertical brace add, and we will go from this point and we'll go to, say, the column. In this case, let's just go with an angle 4 by 4 by 3/8. And we will see that we got a connection to our vertical brace. Now, I will tell you that it does not look at the stitch plates for double angle vertical brace, so I may have to do some adjusting to get my stitch plates out of the way, but it does give me that connection. There might be some massaging when I do have stitch plates. Now, I did not get a connection up top here at the column. If I edit this vertical brace, I'll see that my HSS wall strength fails. Maybe just for this case, I'll go ahead and lower my load to 30 kips. Let's just see if we can get a connection. There we go. And we will see that it is using that through gusset plate for this connection as well. There we have our through gusset plate going through there. Now I can go from vertical brace to vertical brace as well. So if I go back to my grid line 3 and we add in another vertical brace, let's just go from here to here. We'll use our 4 by 4 by 3/8, say okay. And we just went in between two different vertical braces. This side I'm missing my stitch plate. This side, once again, that stitch plate is in the way. So I will have some issues or some changes that I need to make on those stitch plates as well. Now these are designed, if I go in here, I can get a design calc for these. Let's just go to my right end. It does give me design for that as well. Now this can be used on vertical braces and horizontal braces. If we go up to our second floor, and we show our members. So here we have some vertical braces, or horizontal braces, sorry. And we're just gonna go ahead and add a construction line. Let's just go all the way across here. Let's edit this horizontal brace, so we can get the section size, just so I don't have to type that in. We'll go ahead and say okay. And we will add a horizontal brace from this point to this point. There's our 6 by 4 by 3/8. And we should see that we have a connection there. Let's go ahead and add it all the way across from here to here. Use that same section size, say okay. Done processing, gives me that shared plate in between there and bolts it to the other horizontal brace that it's going over. So gusset bracing to bracing connections for vertical and horizontal braces are now in version 2020. Staying on connections, we're going to look at the material plate washers. We've added with long slots plate washers in the past. Now we've given you a little bit more, a few more options, I guess, when adding those in. We're going to first look at setup to kind of see what we've added there. If I go to my job options and washer criteria, you will see that for my long slots, I now have the option for material plate. I still have my square plate, but with material plate, we've added some options for material plate washers. So if I go up here in my screen and I go to material plate washers, there's some options for combining material plate washers. So instead of having individual washers, I can combine those. If I turn this off, I'll still get my normal plate washers that I've seen in the past. But if I do combine them, how do I want them to be shown in strips or a single plate? And I'll kind of show you some examples of what this is going to do. And then field bolt shipping, do I want those loose or with the member? If I ship them loose, I'm going to get a separate piece mark and a separate detail for that. If I ship it with the member, it's going to include that in the bill of material for that member. In the bill of material for that member. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I have different options also for the edge distances for standard, oversized, and slots for my different bolt diameters as well. But let's go ahead and take a look and see what that does. So we're going to go ahead and let's go back to my isometric view. We'll just go where we clearly have a shear plate here. Let's just grab these members, hide the unselected members. Let's take a look at this clip angle here. So I'm going to go ahead, shear tab. So the hole type for this is short slot. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. I'm going to modify that, and I'm going to make this a long slot just so we can start seeing those plate washers. So we'll go ahead and change it to long slot. We'll just go ahead and say okay. And right here we see that we have our plate washers that are combined. So automatically it picked that up because I have that set up to combine those. It gives me that plate. Now I will also see that if I edit or if I select both of these, highlight both of these, that plate is not highlighting because I said to ship it loose. So right now it has its own piece mark. If I go and change this to members, you'll see that I can grab that as a member. It has its own piece mark, M240. Now maybe we don't want that. We want that to be shipped. Let's go ahead, ship with the member. If I come back here to my washer criteria and I say that this is shipped with the member, now if I reprocess this, we'll know right away that it's shipped with the member because it will change its color on that material. And if I highlight this member, it is shipped with that member. Now, this is one column of bolts. Let's go ahead and change this to 2 columns of bolts and see what it does there. So if I come in here and look at my columns, I'm going to change this to 2, and we'll go ahead and say okay. We'll see that we have now have 2 strips of that plate washer. Now, that was another option that we saw of having that in strips or one plate. If we go back there to our job options and we go to our washer criteria, material plate washer, we can change this to single plate. And if we reprocess this, we should see that it changes to one plate instead of having those strips. There we go, one plate. If we edit this, let's go ahead and show detail of B22. It's telling me the detail for this member is out of date, so let's go ahead and redetail it. Then we can look at the bill of material and look what the actual detail itself looks like. And here we have the detail. We do see our plate called out, PL P235, 323. If I look at my bill of material, we will see that this is also listed in the bill of material, PL 5/16 by 6 inches, and then our piece mark. That is, like I said, if that is shipped loose, that's not going to show up in this bill of material or on the detail, and it's going to get its own drawing that is separate. Let's go ahead and go back to our model, and let's change that back to strips. Reprocess that. There we have our strips. Let's go back to drawing editor, and we'll go to our process pull down window, say detail current piece mark. Now, this is a little preview. Detailing is going to be our next webinar. But when I detail that current piece mark, I have an option that's hiding behind the window there. There we go. It tells me that this item is currently marked for detailing. Immediately clear this flag. So this is a clear the marked for detailing flag. Previously, it would not clear that detailing flag. Now we give you the option when we use that marked for detailing. When we use the detail current piece mark, we give you that option. So if I want to clear that flag, I can go ahead and say yes. Now be aware that when I go and redetail this, if I do not save the changes from that redetail and I exit out of here, that flag is going to be cleared, yet the detail may not be up to date. So here we have the two different plates. If we look at our bill of material, we have those two plates listed out that are changed. So let's leave drawing editor. Let's go back to the model. And one last thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my material plate washers, and we're going to just go ahead and turn this option off. Say okay, mark the member for processing, reprocess. And we should see what we traditionally have seen with just the single plate washers. And there we go. Now, this is working on a system connection. This does work on other types of long slots if I'm adding them into the material myself. There are some nuances, some things that still need to be looked at, but it does work fairly well. You just might have to play around with it a little bit in order to get it to work correctly. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. I have a plate that I've added on top of this beam here. And just quick, like I'm going to add some holes here. Now they do have to be in the same hole group in order to get them to work correctly with getting the plate washers. We're just going to go ahead and add some quick long slots here. We'll go ahead and repeat these. We'll go ahead and say return, yes. Now let's go ahead and match the holes. Do we want to add bolts? And I have a menu that's hidden behind. I've got too many screens open. There we go. It's hidden behind my webinar screen. That's asking me, do you want to combine plate washers? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Verify the bolt direction just so we can see it easily. I'm going to have them pointing up. And I'm going to process the member. It didn't automatically mark it for processing, but it didn't automatically go through the process. And then we can see that we have our different plate washers there. Now, if I come in here and go back to my options, washer criteria, and let's just go ahead and set this to single plate, say okay. And I'm going to simply, just so it redesigns this, I'm going to go ahead and delete all of my bolts. I want to delete 8 bolts, yes. Now you'll see that it regenerated that with the full plate that is on top of that plate. So it combined all of those into one single plate that is on top of there. Now, the reason why it just simply deleting the bolts is it went through a process and it rematched those holes once I deleted those bolts. So it read setup again and then gave me the one plate. That's why I just deleted the bolts. So it works on system connections, and any bolt that I add to the model, I can use those plate washers. Like I said, in some situations it may not work quite the way you want it to, but if you do run into one of those situations, let us know, and we can try to get that fixed up. Okay, so that leads us into miscellaneous members, and honestly, this is probably one of my favorite things in 2020 is the miscellaneous members. There's been some things that have been haunting miscellaneous members for a lot of years. One of those is piece marking, having two members that are identical, but they do not share the same piece mark because they're modeled in a little bit differently. This miscellaneous members I'll demonstrate helps with that option for piece marking. So I can get that angle that is toe in and toe out to be the same piece mark. So let's go ahead and open up our second floor. And I just have some construction lines up top here. I'm going to go ahead and add in some miscellaneous members. Now, if I go to my pull-out window here and I go to add miscellaneous, I'll get a list of all my different miscellaneous members. Rolled section, we're going to go ahead and do a rolled section right now. But I see that those are all listed out there. Now, the biggest change that's come here is these are now more like members. They're actual custom members that the member line is associated with the material. So if I come in here and I select rolled section, and we'll just go ahead and, let's try that one more time. Pick my wrong point. And we'll just pick from this point to this point. Well, first thing you see is that we have a preview. So I can see how that material is coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and pick those 2 points. Now, instead of getting a material edit screen, I actually have a rolled section edit screen that is for this actual member. I have my piece mark, my sequence. I can include this in the ABM. So all of that ABM information can be associated with this. Then I have my rolled section size. Let's just change this to an angle. Let's just do a 6x4 by 3/8. Rolling operation, I can do a rolling operation here inside of this member edit screen. Toe direction, long leg, horizontal, vertical. I have my elevations listed there, my setbacks, and then I have my top flange operation, so I can do my copes, my clip flanges, my notches, whatever I need to do there. We're going to go ahead and say okay. So here we have that miscellaneous member. I'm going to go ahead and add one right up here as well that is identical. So we're going to go ahead and say okay. Now, if I look at these two, they're identical, but maybe I want this one to be towed the opposite direction. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. And now this is a member edit, not a material edit, where I would previously have to do a material edit in order to get this. I'm going to go ahead and change this tow direction to in. Now, first thing I'll notice is that my piece mark changed. Now I have M240 and M241, but I just told you a few minutes ago that that would not be the case, that I'm going to get the same results for that. Well, it's the trick of how these are added in. So instead of changing that tow direction, I'm going to go ahead and delete this member. And let's just go ahead and edit this one just so I can pick up the tow out. And I'm going to add this miscellaneous member rolled section in again. And instead of going from left to right, I'm going to pick from right to left. Basically what I'm doing is a swap member ends when I'm adding this in. If I come in here and select that, we'll keep all of our options the same. We'll say okay. Now it is towed the opposite direction, but I have the same piece mark. So they're identical pieces because I went from left to right. So it's one thing that you have to watch out for is how you're modeling these in. Whatever point I pick first is my left end. My second point is going to be my right end. So just be aware of that. Kind of similar to, like I said, swap member ends that I have in the member edit screen. Now I'm just doing this with miscellaneous members by picking the first and second point. First point is always my left end. Second point is always my right end. Now, these member lines are associated with this material. Just like beams and columns, I can now go ahead and move stretch. We'll pick this point here, and we'll go to this point, confirm yes, and we should have our new material that is going to be following that member line. There we go. I didn't confirm it. Got to read all the prompts. Pick from that point to that point. Got a message saying stretching miscellaneous material, members, bolts, holes, welds will not be modified. We're going to go ahead and say okay. Confirm yes. So there we have that stretch. We have member, our miscellaneous member M242. We have that both on the same. So that is stretching them. Now, one other option or one other feature to having these as custom members, these new miscellaneous members, is that components can be added to them. Now, not all components have been updated yet to be able to be added to a miscellaneous member, but there are a couple that are at this point. We're going to go ahead and add in another miscellaneous member. This time we're going to do another rolled section, and we're going to go from this point to this point. And for our section size, we are going to pick a cold form Z. We'll just pick the first one on the list there. I'm going to put this to a 0 rotation because I know that it's going to come in flat if I don't. And we have this cold form Z here that we've added. Now, so this is miscellaneous member to miscellaneous member. So I said a couple of components that do work. If we go to our component list, if we select this and we go to our component list, you'll see some concrete components that are in the list. The three important ones that you'll want to be aware of are the surfaces connection, the void space cylinder, or the void space layout. Those are the three main ones that can be added to miscellaneous members. In this case, I want to do the surfaces connection, which allows me to pick two surfaces and connect those together. So if I say surfaces connection, and I pick this surface and this surface, I will get my angle here. I already have a loaded up form, so I'm going to go ahead and load that up, and you'll see that I get that component added to my miscellaneous member. So now if I edit this miscellaneous member, I will see that I have my surfaces connection. So that's another benefit to having these miscellaneous members, is we can start seeing some components being added to them. Now, if I do cuts in this piece without using the member edit screen here, I will get the user main material. So be aware of that this still acts like a beam. If I do cuts or something like that to it, I can still get that user main material. Another nice thing, so let's go ahead and go back to our second floor. And I'm going to add in a couple more construction lines here. And then one more. And I'm going to go ahead and add another miscellaneous member, and I'm going to do flat plate layout. I'm going to go ahead and select some points here. Have my flat plate layout window open here. You'll notice that I get the picture or the canvas of that flat plate right here. I can make some modifications to it. Maybe I wanted to radius the corners. I can come in here and say I want to say a 1/2 inch radius on all my corners. I can come in there and put that 1/2 inch radius. Material thickness, let's go 1/2 inch. Say okay. And now it's asking me to locate some more points. We'll go ahead and say okay. You'll see I was expecting it to come out with a plate, but for some reason right now it is just giving me the outline. Once again, I probably have another window hiding somewhere. Something that I'll have to look at. Generally, it would give me the plate there. Right now, I'm just getting the outline. I probably have something turned off or something that's not working quite right. We'll just go ahead and delete that out of there. Now, what I can also do, I also had that void space layout. So if I did want to make a cut in this piece, let's go ahead and make sure that we're surfaced on top of here. And we'll add in a couple more construction lines. Let's just go 3 inches up. And if I come in here and do a component add, I do have my void space layout. So if I come in here and I create a void space on this, we'll go ahead and say okay. I went a little deep with it, did my 6 inches. I didn't need to go quite that deep, but we can see we can get that cut out. Now, like any other member, that when I use that void space layout, it does not change it to user main material, and I have that cut out there. If I go into my display options and turn off voids, now I have that cut out without changing it to user main material. So all of those different options for my miscellaneous members, um, a lot of that information is going to be stored in my member screen. There are a few different types of miscellaneous members that are kind of still the old traditional miscellaneous members. If I go to my member add key, you can see that existing material, assemblies, bolts, part libraries, extruded profile, those really can't be brought into that. They're already kind of their own custom member, that those are still listed under the miscellaneous. Now, if I want all of the old list of miscellaneous members, if I go to my user and site options, right here on the site, I have show legacy miscellaneous members in the member add screen. So I can get those still to come in if I want to. I would suggest trying at least the new miscellaneous members because they work, in my opinion, so much better. But I can have those old ones. And also if I bring up a job from say 2018 into 2020, it'll still recognize all of those miscellaneous members. It's not going to convert them to the new miscellaneous members, but I will still have all of that information in there. I'm just checking my notes, making sure that I've hit what I want to hit there. I think for the most part, that's our miscellaneous members. I'm going to go ahead and look back. There's quite a few questions that I'm sure I missed something. So these questions should probably ask some of those questions that maybe I've missed. First person asked, which I want to give a shout out to the sales team who did a presentation on SDS2 Edge. They did a good presentation. If you want to go to YouTube and watch that video, someone asked if I'm using the Edge to do this presentation. I am not on the Edge when I'm doing this presentation, but I could be. I use the Edge quite a bit. For those of you that don't know, the Edge is our virtual workspace. I use the Edge to run a lot of my SDS2 and run a lot of things. The big advantage of using the Edge is that I'm here at home and I could connect with somebody else, like we're on a network back in the office, we're on a virtual network. So we could be working on the same jobs, looking at the same thing all together. Someone asked, can you put these girts in on the top side of the building in a view looking down? So my secondary girts, can I be adding those looking down? I do have to pick the 2 points. So if I come in here and we go to the secondary girt and we pick that same point twice, I do have my elevation. So I picked the same point twice, but if I want to select and change my elevation, if I know what my elevations are, yes, I can add them, but I do have to fill out that elevation. It's, in my mind, much easier to just go to the elevation view and pick those points if I have those elevations already filled out. But yes, I can add that in a plan view looking down. Let's see. Now, this is a question that I'm going to have to defer and ask one of our engineers, but the question is, for the through plate, does the SDS2 check the column plastification for single and double walls? That I will have to get back to you and ask that question. So someone mentioned that for the plate washers, there should be an option or should be some text on the drawing for adding something for to have them wired. I don't believe that there is at this time, but that might be an option that we might have to look at. So someone asked when I did the miscellaneous members and I stretched the end, why didn't it keep the same mark? So if I come in here and I let's just say stretch this one from here to here, it's 243. And I stretched that one end, it did keep 243. The first time I did it, I'm not sure why it didn't keep. Maybe it was because I was doing both of them. I'm not 100% sure, but it does try to reuse that piece mark. I think it was just a weird situation that I had when I was stretching both of those member ends over, that it updated one and then it redid the other one and matched it to the updated one. But it should try to keep that piece mark the same. So someone asked, does surface to surface work between two members? Does the notch create, yeah, does surface to surface work between two members? Surface to surface works between any two surfaces. I can pick any surfaces I want and create a connection between those. So yes, it does. Does the notch created in the gusset plate at the HSS column add in the radius for the notch, or does it come in square? So if I go back to my notch there, I believe it was radiused. And I believe it's going to follow my setup options for through plates. So somebody asked, how do you revert the void cutout? So that void works just like any kind of material. So if I come in here and say, okay, let's say that I put it in the wrong way. I wanted it to go up instead of down. I can type in a negative number, so I can type -6 and it goes the opposite way. So if I would have put it in this way, and it all depends on how you pick the point. So if you go in a clockwise fashion versus a counterclockwise fashion, it's going to matter how that material goes in or out. If I do it wrong, just know that you can always come in here and say 6, say okay, and it will put it in there correctly. Now, if I want to get rid of that, I can simply come in here and delete this component. Yes, and now I don't have that cut out anymore. So someone asked, can we get a material plate washer for each bolt? And I think I showed that we can separate that out. We could either have strips, we can have one full plate, or we can have the individual material plate as well. So someone asked if you have time, could you demonstrate the member quick add toolbar real quick? I'm guessing you are talking about some of those in 2018. I believe it's under general. To use the quick add. Obviously they've changed user and site options, so I'm not quite as quick at finding all of the things. I would have guessed it was under modeling. Yep, show member add option bar, top, say okay, and I have to exit the model in order for that to come up. And my model's going to my other screen, so let me pull that back over. There we go. Did I not turn it on? Well, somebody asked that question because they knew it wasn't going to work for me. Well, I'm being kind of silly now because I have to go to member add in order for it to show up. Anyways, you will notice that something new in 2020 for that is that it hides that area. So when I go to my member add beam, then it pulls it down so it's not wasting that space. In 2018, there would be that extra space there. But basically, with this, I can go ahead and add, I can pick my section size. Maybe I want a W12 by 22. I can pick my left end elevation, my right end elevation, what type of connection I want, and I can simply come in here and pick those 2 points and add that beam in there without going to the member edit screen. That's the biggest benefit to this, is that member edit screen doesn't always have to pop up. A lot of times there's options in there that most of the options in there I don't want to check. I have all of those options right here in my quick add toolbar. There's also an option to kind of infinitely do that, continuous add mode, where I can just keep picking points and it'll add members. The last point that I picked will be the first point for the next member. And then there's also the option to pull up the member edit screen. So maybe I want to change the sequence. I could have it pull up the member edit screen once, turn that back off, and then continue adding those beams in. There are some more questions here. One of the questions is, did you cover the pour stop? Now, I intentionally, I know that was in the description. I took that out. I'm going to mention that in the next webinar, but I'll give you kind of an update on where that is in the next webinar. There were some things that I didn't like when I was preparing, so I took it out, and I need to get some questions answered before I talk too much into that with you guys. So Chris is asking, is there a default scale for my miscellaneous members? Are you talking like my detailing scale? And he's saying yes. I'm trying to think if I have some options for that. Gotta try to. So I have my default member scale base and my default submaterial detail base, but I do not think I have an option for miscellaneous members. And if you know of one, let me know, because they said that it was supposed to be an option in there. Let me check the actual member itself to see. I don't remember seeing a scale, but I don't know everything. That's something I'm gonna have to check on for you, Chris, to see if there's an option hiding in there that I don't know about, but I do not know of a different detailing scale base. What my status is, see if there's anything. I don't see anything. I will look into that for you, Chris, and see what I can come up with. I want to thank everybody for coming to the webinar. Looks like it's 1:06. I went a few minutes over, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or support. Myself and support is probably the best way, so one of us get back to you. We're all kind of busy and have different things going on, but we'd like to hear any questions that you have. I see some other questions on here that about connection design and different things that are kind of specific that I'm gonna look into, and I will email you guys out separately for some of the more specific questions. But I thank you guys for your time, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks, guys.